And we are back again. Yeah, I was almost against doing fresco properly for a while. I was like, I could be super artistic with this, and it's so much fun doing it this way. And then when we went out west and I just saw Nick do it properly, I was like, oh, I really like this done properly. Yeah, so I've got a wall in the back of the house here that I just I wanted to match my sample board from the first time that I did it, and I did, but I don't like it. So I'm gonna do it like a light blue, like a sky blue, and just do it properly and see what I can make it look like. I'm excited to do that.
Like especially if it's like your own house, like
Oh
you're not
yeah,
happy, or even a project. If the customer's unhappy with it, or for whatever reason, like it's not the end of the world. You could do it again in a completely different color, completely different whatever. And worst case scenario, if they hate it so much that they don't want fresco, then you skim it flat and you paint it. Like
and you don't have to like sand it down. You just skim over it. Yeah, I love
yeah,
the whole thing. I had some sample boards I didn't like. I just skim right over it, even with the sealer, everything. I was anticipating issues, nothing. It's yeah, I like it. I like the product. Um yeah, so I wrote down YouTube professional because I almost want to touch back on that because there's a difference, right? Where you've gone on YouTube and you figured it out for yourself and you do it pretty good, and being a top tier guy doing something. There is a difference, and it's not like one is any less than the other, but I feel like people need to be honest about which one they are when they're talking to customers and when they're talking to people. Because if you had like a guy like me goes and does a Venetian plaster job, and let's say it doesn't turn out good, that customer might look at that and go, Venetian plaster is shit, not the applicator that I paid under to do it was shit. Does that make sense? Like a
yeah, and not you specifically, but I feel like there's a lot of that out there on like
tons.
your marketplace or Kijiji or whatever. Like that could offer a much cheaper price to finish it,
Yeah.
or whatever, and they finish it and it's a disaster. Like it's like fresco. It's like seeing it in video versus seeing it in person
Hmm.
versus professional finisher versus a non-professional finisher. Like it's gonna look okay when it's painted at first, but give it a year,
Yeah.
maybe less. Like some issues are gonna start to pop up. You know.
Yeah. Long term, even like day after it's finished. I've seen some nightmare stuff, man, where we called a guy in and it was cheap, or the boarder said he could finish it, or the framer said he could board it, or whatever along that progression of things. Um, or the drywall guy we had here said he could do tile. Um, and he comes in way less than everyone else because he doesn't really fully understand the scope of what he's doing, or she, or whatever. I think there, like you said, I think there's a lot of that. And I think if you're not a blue collar person, I don't think you kind of get the whole grasp of everything. Like having someone board your house, there is kind of this thought process of anybody can do it, which is somewhat true, but not anyone can do it properly.
Yeah.
Right, where you're going to make corrections, you're going to make sure things are a certain way. Same with butt joints. If I look up here, I can see very clearly where all the butt joints are on this popcorn ceiling I have. Eventually I'm going to skim this out. I just don't know if it's going to be fresco or not. I
And
really
that's
like it.
the thing. Like on an old texture ceiling like that, like you might not even be able to just skim that, because chances are that tape that's covering that butt joint isn't done properly. Like chances are
Oh
there's
yeah,
either blisters, or that tape is just delaminated from the drywall for whatever reason. So you could
right.
skim that times, that tape's going to show. So that's why I'm so hesitant to sanding and skimming over popcorn or texture,
Yeah.
or especially like a fire tape garage. I will never finish one of those for paint again, just because I had to take off every single corner bead, and even the drywall wasn't even hung well enough to install the corner bead without having to do a lot of pre-fill and extra prep work just to get it to be done to an acceptable extent. So like certain cases like that, like I'm very hesitant to do, even though they're the most, like sanding and skimming a popcorn ceiling is by far the most profitable per footage
Oh, I bet.
um, out there. But I tell everyone that wants to do it, I say I could do it, and I'm happy. I'm like I'll do it if that's the route you want to take. But I always try to advise them to either take it down, because if there's a water leak, then now you have access to solve that water leak or relocate any electrical, or board over. Mark out your joists, board over if you have that divide in the room where it's four walls or a bulkhead where you're able to do that. Just because if the existing substrate, if the existing tapes aren't done properly, um, you're going to have to retape them before you could have a finished ceiling anyway. So that's just the way I look at it.
And I absolutely agree. Um, a lot of the good guys that you talk to, their answer is to put up firming channel, and not firming channel, put up whatever the channel that this the steel that goes
Resilient
across,
channel.
resilient channel,
Yeah.
and then just reboard over it, like reboard over it and just tape it again, and there's just no problems doing it that way as long as you're finding your joists and whatever. But yeah, I just couldn't imagine skimming a ceiling, getting halfway through it, and like the stuff saturating and fucking falling through, or like you said, the tapes, you're just not going to fix it. And then now that's your problem because you've said that you could figure it out. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And
a little.
so if it's happened to me multiple times where you sand, you sand, you go to do your first coat, and then whatever, a butt joint tape completely blisters, right? So you peel it right off. And now, yeah, first coat that's half wet. So now you have to, it's either you're going to try to retape that while everything else is already saturated. It's just a nightmare, right? You let it
Yeah,
dry, you got to retape it. Now you got to catch it up to everything. It's just, yeah,
it's a bugger.
that's the kind of thing that I try to avoid. So that's why I just try to suggest as much as possible to reboard.
Yeah, my first year out on my own, I was so hesitant to just tell people the way that it was. Like we can do it this way and we can make it cost that way, but you're not going to be happy with it and it's not going to be correct. As opposed to you're always trying to like help people either with the budget or like well, they said they don't want it this way, and so that's kind of they're asking for that. But it's not an educated ask. It's like we've heard through the grapevine that this is the cheapest way of doing it, or this is the easiest way of doing it from Uncle John or whatever, and he doesn't know either. So it's like kind of being transparent and walking people through process and then how you have seen it or foresee it happening. And I'm way more open now, where it's like this is how I foresee this happening, or you know just not taking the job, which is another thing that sucks because when you have somebody call you back and they say we wish we went with you because it's a disaster now, it's almost like, I don't know, your heart kind of feels bad on some of those sites. um Out in Scarborough, when I really first started with the company, I was working for a guy that owned a cabinet company, and he was taking on like larger sites and that weren't cabinets, and I kind of filled in that gap for him. And our first customer called me back and said, would you like to come and quote two-tier deck for me? It would have been tons of driving. Like I probably would have been a lot more than what it would have been. Um, but I really took my time to look at the numbers, and by the time I had gotten back to him, he had it kind of accepted like a gentleman's handshake with somebody. And I just said, yeah, not a problem. And then I asked what their quote was because I was interested. And when he told me, I kind of made a noise because it was way more than what I was anticipating. And then when he went into the specifics of what the guy was saying he was going to do, it was actually really quite cheap for what he was saying. So I kind of made another noise of like, oh my God, like I think he's promised it to be overdone so much, but like there's no way that he's taken into account all these other things that are going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And at that point I just told him like, listen man, it's this, my brand is an integrity brand. Like if it's not, if you're not happy, we're going to make you happy, period. Like I try to do the absolute best that I can. So I told him like, I'm not going to undercut somebody else. I know what they've quoted. Like that's a sleazy thing to do. um and he ended up calling me back like, I wish that I had just waited because it ended up being a fucking nightmare. And it's like I know that I could have just helped him, right? But it just, there was, it didn't feel right as a business owner, because if somebody did that to me, I'd be fucking pissed about it. Where you call someone that you have a relationship with, get all of my numbers and intentions, and then undercut me, that sucks. Or overcut me and explain what I've fucked up on. I wouldn't like that either. So I just told him like, I don't think we can even talk about this anymore. I'm sorry, but we're not doing it. When it comes to finishing, I don't know it well enough to be that in depth. But when you're talking about two-tier decks and all of that kind of stuff, like I'm a carpenter by trade, so I understand it fully. But man, the heartache on some of that stuff, because it's someone's house at the end of the day. When it's like a builder you're working with or whatever, it's like stuff sucks sometimes. And I get that because they're cutting corners, or they're not heating a house properly, or whatever. But that's all built into their structure. Um, yeah, taking something on and it blowing up in your face sucks. But when you feel like you could have rescued someone a little bit, it's hard to run a business like that though. You
Yeah,
can't.
yeah. That's a tough situation because in that particular situation, it's like you hope that what you expect is going to happen doesn't happen, right?
Yeah,
So that the customer doesn't go through this shit show. But you also can't really just say, hey, like you can't just, like you said, you can't undercut or undermine this other person too. But it's a tough situation to be in. So in that case, I guess you just hope that person who says they know what they're doing knows what they're doing, but who knows if that's ever the case.
yeah. And I kind of walked into it just interested. Talking to a friend was the way that I thought about it. And then when he was like, well, why don't you kind of give me your quote, I stood back as a business owner like, fuck. Like I can't, with integrity, I can't do it, man. Yeah. That you made a countertop out of epoxy, didn't you? And it had like some paint and stuff in it.
Yeah, I did. It's not down here anymore.
Yeah.
I did a concrete countertop in
That's
college,
right. That's right.
and then did epoxy over that. Um, and then I did a couple more just on my own when I was still living in Waterloo, and yeah, just added some like metallic pigments in with the epoxy to give it whatever effect.
Yeah.
So I thought that might be cool to try in fresco, but it really just kind of made some custom gray type fresco colors. Like it didn't really give the effect I thought it. I didn't really know what to expect, but it just
Yeah.
kind of. I mean, I had two different colors of fresco, and then I kind of mixed some pigment in with your regular compound, and it had some cool gray shades that I couldn't make with the two colors of fresco packs that I had.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Um, so at the very beginning of all this, when Foz and I did his backsplash, I saw Cam do that swirl where he puts the Modern Masters metallic
And that's
paint.
what inspired me.
Yeah, I did it with two different colors of fresco because I wasn't sure like what had gone on. And like I like to just figure it out. And then if I
Yeah,
can't figure it out, I'll ask somebody, like that's kind of the fun part of it. But then like the second swoop, like you're just mixing two fresco colors together. So everything was very gray, so it ended up looking really good. Foz did a great job. I think he ended up doing like 3 coats and instead of just one more, and it really did kind of come in nice. But I ended up doing the swirl out west when we did the fresco event at Columbia, and you've kind of got one swoop with that paint in it to get the swirl. If you move it too much, it just absorbs into the mud. So you've just got kind of shiny mud.
Yeah, every blends it more. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But Cam though, like he had fresco on his trowel, and then he poured like the unmixed liquid of fresco on top of it, right? To
No,
get
so
that
that
to
is
get that effect.
that's a metallic paint. So that's actually a paint that
Okay, okay. I thought it was more the fresco liquid.
yeah, so that no, I'm sure you could do that, but the paint itself is a different viscosity than the mud, so it'll kind of keep separate if you don't play with it too much. I picked his brain a
Yeah, see,
lot about it.
I did spray paint in mine just messing around, but yeah, like you said, like after your first swoop, that's your design. Every pass after that is just blending it more and more, where it's just now one solid color.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the way that Cam does that swirl, where it like it looks so cool, but you really have to move with intention and then move on. Like that is the way that looks now, and then next. Or it just you kind of lose it all, right? Yeah, I want to do some epoxy work. That's just one of the things that's on the list. I said I'd do some this summer and I haven't yet, but just kind of like play with it a bit. Like I've got
Yeah,
that.
you get some easier like 1-to-1 ratios, and
Mhm.
depending on what you're doing, if you're doing like a thick pour, just make sure you have the stuff made for a thick pour. And then you could buy some metallic pigments if you're doing that. If you're doing clear, whatever you want to do, it's one of those things that it's just trial and error, right? Like you can mess around and do a couple experiments before you want to finish your actual project, but it's really fun in that way.
I figured it would be fun. Yeah. Yeah, it's there's a couple of things on the list, that's for sure. Um yeah, very cool. Oh, I'm falling asleep.
That was
I
9:30. Oh,
have no
9:30 on
idea.
the dot.
Oh, look at you. Well done.
I have a thing for that. Whenever my wife asks me what time it is, I usually get it within like a minute. I
That's
don't know
bang
why.
on. I like that. I read this one of like the 7 books I've read in my life. And it was like the guy was like an investigator, but one of the things that kept happening is he would keep the count of the time in his head all day, and it was one of his disciplines or whatever. And I always thought that was really neat. So like when it happens and it's bang on, I have this like moment of like, yeah, I'm a badass or whatever.
I'm just thinking of like constantly counting on every waking moment of your day, just
Yeah.
constantly counting in the back of your head. I wouldn't be able
It
to get anything done.
oh yeah, no, you wouldn't. That would be crazy. Yeah, it was a neat book anyways. Oh, yeah, doing I did mushrooms on the way out west on an airplane. That was fun. Uh
Mushrooms on an airplane.
what's that?
You said you did mushrooms on an airplane?
Oh yeah. Before I got on the plane to go out west. And then I did an audio book of the Lion Tracker's Guide to Happiness. And it was like a fucking vibe. It was bang on. Everything was bang on. And I killed the whole book. It was so good. I just like closed my eyes, put my big headphones. They were actually these headphones, so it was perfect. Um, yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I like audiobooks when you have the time to sit and do one. Um, and
Yeah.
then yeah, the mushrooms definitely helped. That's I'm not sure I'll fly sober anymore. I I you almost become irritated. I'm so fucking big that I typically have to be in some sort of a situation like this, or everyone else is uncomfortable, and then I feel bad. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was way more relaxed. That's for sure.
my thing though is like, how long did you have to wait through security? Because like, I would imagine you're not going to take mushrooms in an airport bathroom. So like, you got to time that right before you start getting a little goofy before going through security.
No, so I took a Muscle Tech bar and I opened it and I took the bar out and I put a mushroom bar in it and I resealed it with fresco sealer.
Wow,
Yeah, so I just had
brilliant.
right before I got. Oh yeah, yeah, it was a good time. I got if you're on my personal Instagram, I got a video with the Mission Impossible music. I videoed it all. It was awesome. Yeah, it was good,
I think
man.
you and I
I What's
will
that?
be good friends. I said, I think you and I will become good friends.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, we got to get out and do some golf or something. I do need to start spending a little bit more time relaxing. Not relaxing, but like enjoying a little bit more. I like working. But I mean, I'm not afraid to put in a whole ton of hours. I think on Nick's podcast, you were like, if I could do 10 months a year and make your money, that's kind of ideal. And it's right, man. 2 months a year is not a lot of time to take off if you think about it.
Yeah, it's for me. It's like it's so different from a full time employee standpoint. It's like you're working Monday to Friday, whatever, 50, 49
Hmm.
weeks a year. Whereas, and you're making X amount. I was making $30 an hour as a renovation carpenter. So I think my bi-weekly take home was like 1,800 on a good week.
Hmm.
So like 36 a month uh, after tax. And like, that's fine. I don't have to worry about whatever the expenses, deductions, like that's my income. That's what that is. And that was good. I lived a good life, owned a house, all of that. But now all my jobs are kind of like on a job to job basis. So now I'll take on a main floor project. And now that job's going to take me, a week and a half to 2 weeks. But now that just earned me what 4 weeks at my full time job would have made me, right? So now it's like, so now I made whatever my month's income in 2 weeks. So now I can
Hmm.
take on another job and now I'm just that far ahead. So you could kind of have some gaps here and there and still be like you could I'm still able to take, more time off and still be ahead of where I would be as a full-time employee, which is
Right.
great. Like on the other hand of that, you could hustle, 24/7, like Brad Hanna said, the golden handcuffs,
Hmm.
and just rack in the cash, but at what cost? You don't have any time to enjoy that money that you're earning, or so I, this summer, especially for me, it's more of leaning towards the side of more enjoyment. Whereas in the wintertime, when it's too cold to do anything outside, then I'll probably work a little bit more. But it's having that freedom to make that decision on your own.
Yeah, and
It's a
you can catch up when it's raining and when it's snowing and right all the things that where you can't golf. I I think the biggest thing with the golden handcuffs for me was the like getting the big logos and the big office and the big truck and the 10 employees and like when you want that you have to do that now, right? Where with you, if you want to get ahead a month and then take a month off, that's what you expected to be there is there. But if you're overstretching, and especially if you're overstretching just to look a certain way, it's a crazy thing to do to yourself. For a business is a business, but forcing yourself to have to do more things is just a terrible way to live. Especially like if you've got personal stuff going on, like with your family, having to decide that they're not as important as having to go to work because you have to, as opposed to, you're a little more flexible because you've made a budget and you've fucking stuck to it and all that other kind of stuff. Like being able to bugger off down to Florida, that's going to be awesome. And you're kind of already caught up to it. It's brilliant. Yeah, I need to just pick a number that I think is appropriate, and just when I hit it, then that's the number. And if I want to get a little ahead, but then you got to kind of like plan where you're going to take time off. Like we're going to go to Mexico. My cousin goes every year with they've got like 10 or 15 people. They call it the squad. It's just their friends and they go on squadcation. In the last 3 years, they've been trying to get me to go. So this year I'm going to go. I'm only going to go for 4 days though. I think they're going for 10. That's too much sitting for
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
4 days is a good number for a vacation. I find we would usually go from Thursday to Sunday for
Yeah.
Florida, but this year we went the whole week, which is going to be great. But yeah, the 4 days is good.
Yeah. There was some backlash when I booked it where they were like, you're only going for 4 days. And I was like, listen, the first day I'm going to take a good look around, make a plan for my second day. I'm going to party hard my second day. And then I'm going to try and kill everyone the third day partying. And then I got to go home. Like that fourth day where everyone's miserable, I'm going to be like, have a good vacation and get on a plane. Like I'm super good with that. Um, I don't need to party all day every day anymore, right? And my body doesn't like it as much as it used to. That's for sure. I can tell I'm getting old.
I'm lucky. I'm lucky to have figured that out relatively sooner in life than I feel like most people. Like I just turned 29, and like
I was going to
I,
ask you. Yeah,
I'm 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 in bed by like 9:30 most days. Like
brilliant.
Friday, Saturday, like especially this year. But I'm usually in bed pretty early. Not going out too often.
Well, and
But
when
I
you're
wanted to track back on. Sorry, finish that
no,
thought.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to backtrack on another thing you mentioned how like you need to figure out that number and
Yeah.
just stick to it and be happy. So I remember as a kid, I think my parents won like this vacation thing for Cash for Life. Like they didn't win the $1,000 a
Oh,
week, but they won something uh, that's affiliated with that. So I remember like we had a whole bunch of scratch tickets, and like they're saying, "Oh, let's win Cash for Life." And I
yeah,
remember a young kid thinking like $1,000 a week, like that's so much money. Like
yeah,
imagine what you could do with that. So like
yeah,
even like to this day, I mean, nowadays 52 grand, it's a good, decent annual income, but it doesn't nearly go as far as it would
no,
back then. That, for whatever, I just remember that number. That was always my number of like, that's what I need to make. And then went to college, got a couple jobs, got raises, was making that, and like, okay, here I am. I'm 28. I'm just
hmm,
getting by. Like no room for any no access. I'm able to pay my
yeah,
bills, able to do some stuff that I enjoy, but like like I can't go to a fancy restaurant just like that if I wanted to. So
yeah. You're not
and
golfing
then
every day. Yeah,
yeah, and now you have your business, and then that just kind of elevates you to that next level. Um, so now it's like that number. It's trying to just keep it at that number for the summer, and then everything else is a bonus on top of that. And then the winter time, you just grind and hopefully end up on.
yeah. I think so. I like the winter. I don't care when it's cold. I'm so big. I'm pretty well warm, and if I'm not warm, no one else is either. You know what I mean? And you can always dress for it. Like throwing on a tight Under Armour long sleeve under what you're wearing, you can stay warm. And if you're hustling, that's good. I don't know. The winters I've always enjoyed working. A lot of it was outside when I was doing commercial work, where you would just bundle up and you just work. Winter has always kind of been the hustle time. Um, I, I I don't think it was ever by choice, like I ever planned it out like that, but it was kind of the way to do it. Um, yeah, it's fun. I was going to ask you if you were 30 yet. That must feel
No,
good, man.
next year on our 1 year anniversary podcast.
Yeah, do it. When is your birthday?
June 27th. So last
Yeah,
month.
okay. Yeah, yeah. It just oh, awesome, man. I think that's the 10-minute mark. That's awesome that we got to have the podcast. I've been trying to do that for a while. There's a lot of people that in passing we've been like that'd be fun. And I'm just now looping around to doing it. I'm really happy that we did this. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Yeah, that's wicked, man. So yeah, I'm looking forward to do some more collaboration stuff with other people. I did that community stuff that we're doing is a lot of fun. Especially the stuff at CSR is a lot of fun. I think we're super fortunate where you and I live, where everyone's here. Like there are so many um people working in the industry that we all kind of know, and we're all around the corner from each other. So it's like I want to do a golf tournament next year. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to it all, man. This is it's nice when you stand back and you're like moving in a direction and you know it's right. It's one of those nice feelings.
I enjoy watching it on my stories.
Yeah, yeah. Stories are a lot of fun, eh? Where you like you kind of I'll kind of flip through them and then you stop on the ones that you're like, oh, this is wicked. And then you know, you mention it. And even if you had like a shitty day and then somebody messages you like, hey, that was cool yesterday or whatever, it really kind of it picks your spirits up a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, I have been kind of slacking on posting stuff lately, but even like the odd time, I'll just have like a random story, and then like have like 5 DMs or something like that. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, cool, okay, yeah. I
Yeah.
got to get back on. I have been slacking, but I do have some big jobs coming up, so I do have some high hopes. Lately, it's been smaller jobs where like you can't get that good camera angle. There's not much to film, but there'll be some more good stuff hopefully coming up.
Well, definitely looking forward to it. Got any shout outs you want to do?
No, I don't have anyone giving me any stuff for free,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
easy peasy. Okay. So where does everybody find you if they're looking for you? Faw Finishing on Instagram.
Instagram would be the best. On my
Okay.
Instagram page has all the information you need. See my work, see what I could do, and contact me from there.
Yeah, brilliant. And it is really good work. Um, it's nice to be on someone's site and like see it and you're like, yeah, I love this.
Yeah, you actually saved the day on that one too. That's when I did my three-way experiment.
You know,
You because you brought me all the three-way inserts, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love the way that you did that, where you didn't just take the product and like run it through a whole house and go, okay, that kind of worked or whatever. You split the project in two, and you were like, because it's essentially the same board feet, and like what took what, how long did what, and I love the how thorough you were with it. It was really quite impressive to see somebody put that kind of like effort into seeing what a new product did for them.
Yeah, that house, like just timing wise, was perfect because like I got my hands on the inserts for the job you came and saw,
Yep.
so that was my first time using. I liked them, so I wanted to try them again. And then that next job, it was perfect. You know, like the basement, main floor, very similar. So I thought, you know, doing one the one way, the other the one way, and kind of put them head to head and kind
Yeah.
of figure out what works best for me. Um, but but yeah, that was nice for you to come bring those for me.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all. It's I think more companies should be looking out for guys like that when it's like, would you test this out? Because I think when people are being told to review things, what they take that as is, would you say something nice about this? As opposed to, will you use this and give me some real feedback on it? Because you
Yeah.
know, if something doesn't fucking work, they ought to know about it. Or if something works really well, but you would rather see it a certain way, like that's the kind of stuff that I think these companies want to hear, right? It's
Well, and taping on
yeah,
Instagram. Yeah, I feel like you must. He's definitely one of the at least in my books one of the better ones out there. But I love his honesty in terms of all that. You know, like he will call out the bullshit if there's any bullshit,
mhm,
and I respect that. And in terms of the three ways, I feel like I like them a little bit more than he does,
yeah,
but I feel he has that 20 years experience on me, um, to just be able to do it way better without them. Um, but but yeah, like you were saying with like the reviewing versus tell people that this is good. I
yes.
feel like Ben's the guy to figure out what's good and what's not good.
Yeah, there's there's a difference between somebody that knows what they're talking about and somebody just being negative or positive. And I think you've definitely got the guys out there that are just 100% positive about everything. And you've got guys out there that are 100% negative about everything. And then you've got guys that know what they're doing. They're taking a look and they're being honest. And to their fan base, not fan base, but you know what I mean, their followers, um, that's why they're following them. They like their interpretation of what honesty is and how they work things, right? There needs to be more of that. It's I like it. I definitely like it. The neat thing about that kind of stuff is Colombia, pretty well in my little group, we know all of it inside and out, right? We're all Columbia guys, but I would know fucking nothing about North Star stuff. So you can hop on a guy that's using North Star that's honest about what he's doing, and it's amazing because you're like, great, that's a walkthrough of what just took you a year to figure out about the stuff that you use. Now, if I could find somebody that would do it with tape deck and all the rest of them, that'd be great. But I'm interested. I'd love to see a taper and take it apart and take a good look at it. The way that head comes off, I think that like just cleans out so well. I bet. Brad took his head in to get rebuilt during one of the CSR things, and it was in a shoebox. Like here's my auto taper, right? And then
I can't imagine clean a bazooka or auto taper without having the head completely detached.
Yeah,
like that would be completely different from what I'm used to.
Yeah, I mean, you figure it out for sure.
Your spoof video of you showering with the bazooka, like that for me, that works quite well.
It does actually work really well.
Yeah.
So
two birds, one stone.
Yeah, when we were in Vegas, Aaron talked about this guy that he loved his content, but he kind of doesn't do it anymore. But he used to get in the bathtub with his auto taper. So I was like, oh, I could one up that for sure. So it was kind of like a tip of my hat to whoever that guy was. I like doing that kind of stuff, man, where like it's kind of a joke, but I know that people are laughing when they see it, right?
That one in particular, that was gold. That was awesome. I laughed really hard.
Yeah, fucking right. Okay, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Yeah, everybody give him a follow. Check out his work. It's amazing. I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, be humble, treat everyone the same, and do your fucking job.